second round of international roundups with your Rugbydump hosts, Jack Tunney and Anthony Watson.
After the first 20, honestly, I thought England were going to cruise, first 15 really. I thought England were going to cruise it and it was going to be a 30, 40 point job, to be honest with you. And I know obviously Australia went into it underdogs, but I thought that they played really, really, really out of their skin almost. But then I look at some of the actual players that they've got on paper, and they always had a good team. To be fair, there was a few players that weren't necessarily well known, but their backline was held together with a lot of talent and a lot of well known players. I thought Ikatal was unreal. Suoli in his first game, ridiculous, and Tom Wright at the back was quality. So, and they're only going to get better. That's the thing. I think, with Samu Karevi to come back in, big addition. Skelton's got to come back. Cora Betty's not involved. Obviously there was a few comments my good friend Ben Young's made about the Lions tour next year, but I think it's shaping up to be a great one. So, I think from an England perspective, obviously it's a tough loss, 2 on the bounce that they probably should have won. But, I don't want to say the old cliche line, there's loads of stuff to be positive about, but I thought Marcus Smith has been unreal. And the more he gets the ball, the better England looks. So I don't want to sit on the fence, but honestly, I think an England win wouldn't be a massive surprise for me this weekend. I think just from an emotional perspective, they'll be so fired up for this one, given South Africa beating us 2019 World Cup final, beating us 2023 semi-final, for the guys who went on the Lions tour, beating us on that tour. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of pain that South Africa have inflicted. So, it's an easy one to get up for. And then when you add obviously the 2 losses on the bounce, I think that they'll be fired up, and I think it'll be a big, good game, hard physical game. But I wouldn't be surprised if England win.
I love that. And obviously Marcus he's a hell of a talent, mate. And the way he's come along over the past couple of years is phenomenal, right? Have you seen much of a change in his game since he's sort of made that big step up to international rugby?
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest step I've seen is that his ability to manage games is improved. And I think that some of that is probably from, time in the saddle, but also being around guys like Fordy and Faz, and seeing how they operate, seeing what they look for. Because those guys are, in terms of players I've played with, George, Baz and Polly are the best 3 game managers that I've played under. So for Marcus to be able to work with 2 of those guys for a sustained period, that obviously adds to his game. But Marcus has always had the X factor stuff. He's always been able to step people. He's always had wheels. He's always had the show and go. So the only question marks people had over his game was game management and kicking. And his kicking was unreal against the All Blacks. And I thought his X factor stuff is always going to be there. So I think his all round game is what's come on leaps and bounds, but particularly the game management, putting players through holes, putting the team in the right areas of the pitch.
And in terms of just going back to Australia slightly, Suolihi, obviously you referred to him a moment ago. What a game he had! What were your thoughts on him for a first ever game of professional rugby? Right?
Yeah, insane. I mean, there's pressure, and then there's not playing a game of rugby union until setting out at Twickenham in front of 80,000. So for him to deal with it how he dealt with it shows what a bloke he is as well as what a player he is. But I thought that he looked like a class act, not flustered by the occasion. You saw his offloading skills. I don't think he ever got hit backwards. So he's able to always keep the ball alive, which is so important in today's game. So I thought he was really, really classy. And he's only going to get better, more experience, more time in the saddle. He's just going to improve and improve. And that's going to be dangerous for anyone who comes up against him. And Ikatal was unbelievable as well. That was a dangerous, dangerous centre partnership. And like I said, you've got Samu Karevi to come back in there as well. So one of them will have to be shifted to a different position somewhere in the back line. But, you have to play all 3 of those guys, because those 3 are going to be dangerous, and they put that team on the front foot and make things happen.
So how important is it to have these good Aussie sides?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's important because, not only does it improve the rugby championship and the viewership for that, and the entertainment behind that, but also Super Rugby Pacific having good quality Australian players coming through and more eyes on Australian rugby is going to bring more talent through. And they're obviously at a bit of a crossroads with NRL going through the roof. So Australia starting to pick back up, I think is really, really important for the game over there. But I can't lie and say that it's all, sunshine and roses. I think that it was nice to see them suffer for a little bit because the Australians, they got a lot to say for themselves. So I can't sit here and say that I didn't smile a few times seeing them get pumped.
Obviously, South Africa coming up this weekend. You want England to do it. You reckon they've got a good chance. What areas do England need to attack?
Mate, honestly, picking out holes in South Africa's team is is like an impossible task. Um, I think the one thing I look at from the Scotland game and think that England really need to try and, I guess, target is whenever they get into that 22 or in that red zone, they've got to come away with points. I think Scotland coughed up a lot of ball in that area, and had they converted it into points, I think it could have ended up being a different game. Um, Taking your opportunities against South Africa is huge. If you don't, they'll make you pay because they're the ultimate pressure team. When you've got a pack like they've got and a pack on the bench, it's like if you don't put them under pressure, then all the pressure's on you. In terms of set piece and in terms of territory and all that, and they can just suffocate you with those guys. So, and that's not even to mention their backs. Like everyone talks about South Africa's pack, but that gives their backs the platform to play. And when you've got Cheslin in the backline, when you've got Polly in the backline, when you've got Diolande, when you've got Creel, like it's just what do you do? Once you've got the platform with those guys, then you've got to stop these guys. It's like brilliant. Do you know what I mean? So it starts up front with South Africa. You've got to match them up there, and then, like I said, you've got to take every opportunity that you get when you're in the 22. Come away with something, and then build it, and hope that you can absorb some of that pressure from the back.
I think they had a 7-1 split last week, didn't they? Did you see the footage of all the big boys coming on the field?
Oh my god, mate! I swear, I think it was Dave Flatman on comms. He was brilliant, mate. He said something like, it looks like a flipping nightclub in Pretoria. The bouncers blocking your entry. Like, honestly, it's not even just the size of them; it's the quality of the player that's coming on. Like,
Mate, I mean,
it was nuts.
Khaleesi coming off the bench. Like,
Jasper Visa,
yeah,
like,
who does that? That's rude.
yeah, Jasper's blood would have been boiling for 50 minutes, ready to come on and rip someone's head off. Is the last thing you want to see, mate, after you're blowing a little bit. Is at 50 minutes, is Jasper coming on? Like, oh, bro, now I've got to tackle this bloke as well. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, a lot of people say this, that, and the other about it. Like, everyone would do the same thing if they had that pack. And I think that it adds a real element to the game because it's like people don't do it. So it's innovative. And, you see more and more teams going 6-2 now more than they ever did before. And that's because of Razzie. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's brilliant. I think that rugby needs all the innovation that it can get. And Razzie's at the front of that for sure.
Manny's not playing this weekend, sadly, because he's injured. And obviously Tom Curry's got the concussion. For who do you see coming on the wing instead of Manny?
I think Slightholme, definitely. I think he looked decent when he came on last week. I think ball in hand. I like to see him get his hands on the ball with a little bit more space than he did. Just give him the ball early and let him get to work because he's got wheels for days and he can beat defenders. Not to mention he's very strong as well. Like he doesn't get hit back too often. So I think that in terms of like for like replacement, they're pretty similar. He might not, go hunting for the ball as much as Manny, but I think that he's up there with the most dangerous in terms of open space. So I think that yeah, not to say that Manny won't be missed because I don't think that's fair on Manny, but I think Slightholme is a very, very, very good person to bring in. And then I'd like to see Daly on the bench. I think his versatility and his understanding of the game will be really pivotal against a Springbok team with probably the most experienced 23 in world rugby, I'd imagine. So that's how I see it go. And in terms of Curry's replacement, I think it's, well, if I was picking a team, it would be Sam Underhill. I think, he'll be probably raging a little bit with his lack of involvement in the Autumn Nations. He'll want to prove a point. And in terms of people who can tackle, you want your best defensive team out there against that South African forward pack, and there's no one like Sam Underhill. So for me, he goes straight in, but we'll see what Steve does.
Yeah, I mean, any idea why Sam would have been left out?
Honestly, not sure. I think Steve is a very thorough coach, and nothing he does is for no reason. I think potentially the game last week and the All Blacks game probably were heavily linked to turnover attack and limiting turnovers and that type of phase play that New Zealand and Australia probably thrive in. And I think that probably suits a jackal threat or a heavy jackal threat, as well as bringing Don Brandt off the bench, who's great in terms of distribution and hitting lines and probably more unstructured play. So I think it's probably a tactical reason as opposed to form or anything like that. I think he knows what Sam can do, and everyone knows what Sam can do. But against South Africa, I think he's your man.